Hi, hello, welcome to the next Gren Twigs video. I am going to jump back into the tests from our previous video where we were making a palindrome checker. So go back an episode or two if you haven't seen this yet. But I'm coming back here to talk about something called fuzz testing, and that is a way to test your code with some randomly generated values. So we can come up with more hard-coded examples like we've been doing here for our palindrome checker to see if it's working right. But we can really hammer it and have a lot more guarantees that it's working, even for things maybe we didn't even expect, using these randomly generated values. And we get those with a module in the test package called Fuzz. And for this set of tests, we're gonna generate some strings. And I'm also gonna grab int as well. I don't know why it's highlighting string. Maybe I've got a syntax error that I don't see right now, but we'll see. Actually, let me go ahead and run that. Yeah, there's my syntax error. Import fuzz, right, exposing. I have started recording these very early in the morning. Pardon my inability to code before I have fully woken up. So we are exposing our string, and we're also going to need a different, so all of our tests are running with this test function, but we are going to run our fuzz tests with this fuzz function. And as you can see, my tests are over here running on the right. If you want to pause and look, that's the command I'm running. But anytime I change a file, it's going to run the test. They're still passing because I haven't changed anything yet. Let's write our first fuzz test. So the way you write a fuzz test is with the fuzz function, and then you give it a fuzzer. The fuzzer we're going to use first is the string fuzzer. What that does is it lets us, well, let me write the test description first. So that's the next argument to the fuzz function, and we'll just say we're gonna force some palindromes for this test. Now, if you notice, all our other tests run via a function that doesn't, I mean, it takes an argument, but it doesn't really use it. Our fuzz tests are going to use the argument. We're going to be passed something from this fuzzer. This fuzzer will give us strings. So our test will receive a randomly generated string. So we can take that string, and we should be able to assume, if this is working correctly, any string that is concatenated with the reverse of that string should give us a palindrome. So when we pass the result of that to palindrome.check, we can expect that the result is true. I believe that should pass. Yes, it does pass, but I don't like to not see a test fail. So I'm going to assume if we don't concatenate it, any randomly generated string, we're going to get at least one that's not a palindrome. So let me just make sure that my test is actually working. It is. Okay, so when it gave us the string 01, it said it's not. That's what we want. That's a good failure. This is a good test. Let's do the opposite of this and force some non-palindromes. And that's why I pulled in int, because before this video, I was trying to think like if you had how could you take a randomly generated value and do something that you know will always never be a palindrome? And what came to mind for me, maybe you can think of something better, but was to take an integer and concatenate it with the next integer. So 1 concatenated with 2, a million concatenated with a million.1, a million one. Shouldn't be a palindrome. So forced non-palindromes. This time our test is being passed in integer, so I'm calling it I. So, well, we have to convert these to strings, but when you concatenate an integer with the next one, that should not be a palindrome. There we go. Let me just, yep. All right. So I'm going to stop there. There's probably, you kind of get the idea, I think. Look at the, in the test package, you'll see a module called Fuzz, and there's lots of stuff here that you can use. So, like we used int, which is a simple fuzzer, but you can get a range of ints, ones that are at least a certain size. There's a lot you can do with strings. You can get really fancy and have hard-coded values, and it'll select from the list. Lots of things you can do with fuzzers. You can get some really powerful stuff going. One of the reasons you might want to do this, there's many reasons. I mean, you can look for, if you want more info on this stuff, I mean, do a search for fuzz testing. It's not specific to Gren. There's other names for this. I think, forgive me if I'm mixing up my terms here, but I think property-based testing is either this or something very similar. And I think you might get a little more information searching for property-based testing. One thing I wanted to show, though, is one of the reasons, I started to say this, one of the reasons why you might want to do this is to really harden your code. What I mean is, let me show you in the REPL what I mean. So I'm going to import that module. This is a function that's it just spits out some randomly generated values from these fuzzers, so you can see what kind of things you're working with. So when we are getting strings in our test, I think it wants a number. So let's generate 10. Let's get 10 strings. Let's do this properly and say I want 10 strings. There we go. You can see we've got some pretty gnarly strings here. There's emoji, there's Unicode characters, there's escape sequences. This is stuff, you know, you've got a QA tester here in the code that's really trying to, you know, it's going to a bar and it's ordering a lizard. So that's very helpful, gives me a lot of confidence in the code that I'm writing, that it's not gonna fail on me or do something weird giving some unexpected value. Anyway, I think I'll end it there. Don't have a good way to end these.